And we continue at 106 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, about once a week, LA County has a press conference to talk about the updates to the recovery of the wildfires. And inexplicably, they keep inviting you-know-who.
I'm very pleased to bring up to the microphone Dr. Barbara Ferrer, Director, LA County Department of Public Health.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Supervisors Horvath and Supervisor Barger, for your leadership. And
boy, she cannot stop herself from saying that.
Oh, thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
No, thank you.
For your leadership and for bringing us together very often to make sure that we're able to communicate to residents all across the county our commitment to really support a full recovery.
Why does she always sound like she's got one foot in the grave?
She's not well.
The picture of public health is the public health director.
Every time I hear her speak, I want to get her some orange juice and some chicken soup.
Next slide.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a building strategist, developer, and 31-year resident of Pacific Palisades, Elaine Culotti. Elaine, thanks so much for stopping by.
Well, hi. Oh, my God, I'm so excited to be on and talk to you.
Well, thank you so much.
There's so much to say.
Calling in.
How's it going?
Good. So, as someone who is a longtime resident of Pacific Palisades, and you experienced the fires up close and personal, I'm sure you have a lot to say, a lot to get off your mind. First of all, let's talk about the process of just trying to, what happened? You have multiple homes in the Palisades, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did any of them survive, or did they burn down?
They all survived.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah,
how about
it's
your
crazy.
immediate neighbors?
No, they did not. I'm alone, as they say, alone on the hill.
Oh, wow.
So it's, there's part of me that says, you're a builder and you did a great job, but there's the other part is that has nothing to do with that. It was literally just pure God. So you looked out for me, I guess, In the case of one of the areas, I do think that the newer materials help a lot because of the fire requirements are pretty stringent after about 2008 when they did the baseline hillside ordinance here in LA, and those upgrades in required materials really do help and play a part, I think. In an older home that I have, which is basically a castle, it's one of the 7 castles by the sea in the area called Castellamar where the landslide is. I think that those homes that have survived since 1920, and there's bunches of them, are a lot because they survived through a lot of things. Number one is proximity to how they're situated on the hillside, where they are like either sort of protected from wind, or they're on bedrock. I mean, there's a number of reasons why they've just historically held up. But again, it's just luck. There's people all around me, and all those houses are gone. So it's quite a fiasco.
Did you do anything with the water? Did you water the roof? Did you water the structure? I saw people doing that when the fires were getting close by, and that seemed to work well. Well,
there's suppression systems in the newer homes which do help it, but they also ruin everything inside the home, which is tricky. The water ran out pretty early in the Palisades in terms of some of the upper areas of the Palisades that burned a little bit later in the night. Castellamar was below Bienvenida, so that area burned earlier in the day. They still had water. So they got a lot of water on the properties, and you can see the ones that survived had a lot of water on them. I think they even used pool pumps. The fire department was super resourceful, I have to say. They, given their resources that they've been left with here in California, I thought they did a fairly decent job. And I do think that we have to give them a shout out for the evacuation efforts because, with the absolute catastrophic $50 billion loss, if you want to look at it that way, the fact that 24 people I think lost their lives is amazing because it's just so massive in terms of square footage, acreage. and they did a great job getting people out of their homes. But the fact they had no water to fight is, like that we should be screaming that is from the highest place we can possibly be, because that is 100% resource management. And the other thing I can say is that, which I think is very important right now, people want to get in there because, they want to get in there. And the reason that, they got to keep the area closed is not necessarily just safety issues, but also it's giving an advantage to Department of Water and Power and the Southern California Gas Company, and to be able to do the retrofit infrastructure, duct tape and staple Band-Aids to get things up and running temporarily without any interference of traffic. This has been incredible. I mean, they have moved mountains. I mean, those guys should be on a pedestal. I cannot believe how much GWP has gotten on PCH. If you've been down there, if you haven't, I suggest you go and see it. It's unbelievable. They have really brought it. And I'm very proud of DWP and Southern California Gas Company, I got to say, just because no one said it.
Can you speak to what it's like to have your house survive, but everything around you is burned down? So obviously the infrastructure in your community is gone, whether it be the power lines or any sort of public property, that all burned down. Your house specifically survived. I assume that they're not letting you go anywhere near there unless you're just there for a certain period of time. You certainly can't stay there right now. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. There's a possibility. For example, on one of my properties, I just ordered a temporary water tank so that we can connect water. But the water's going to be polluted for a long time, and when you heat the water, it activates those pollutants. So the water in a home that's not burned down is challenging, and the getting power there I don't think is as difficult. But getting gas is also difficult because they have a lot to check for gas leaks, especially in houses that were kind of ripped off of the hill from the fire, because once they start doing debris removal, they've got all the gas cut. And as I'm understanding it now from the MATOC, that they're going to remove foundations, which is a bummer, but that's what they're talking about doing. And the MATOC's probably going to get let completely do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. So there's a process that we are in here in California that I think people don't understand. And the reason I encourage people to be optimistic, even though I can say that because I have a house, and I don't want people to feel like, oh, you're just saying that because you have a house. No, I mean, FEMA is not unprepared. FEMA is extremely organized. It's not organized, because from the Biden administration to the Trump administration, they already have their groups that do their emergency response. And those things come under the MATOC. And the purpose of that is to allow sort of mandatory awards for task contractors to work. And if you don't have those contractors in place, then you cannot mobilize. Now, they can definitely change that and add to it. But at the moment, ECC, which you will see all over the Palisades, is under the current MATOC, and they are already active and working. And that's why EPA is there, and EQA, and they're starting to let those contracts to large contractors like Southland, Tudor Perini, I don't know if Tisch Development's in, but big contractors that have thousands of pieces of equipment that are able to actually mobilize and do shoring versus a bunch of small contractors. Because small contractors, too many trucks, they clog up the road, they don't have all of the equipment that they need, it takes twice as long, and so on.
How much smoke damage has been done to your properties?
Every property in the Palisades has suffered from smoke damage. Properties that are untouched have smoke damage. So the yellow tags are the smoke damaged properties. They say 15 to 25%. So it's expensive, and the houses are expensive. And smoke damage is, I guess you could argue it's fixable. Maybe some people it doesn't bother them so much, but it's toxic. It smells absolutely terrible. And it takes, a lot. And by the way, when do you clean it? Because moving all the debris next to you, so say you have a house that's smoke damaged that you could technically move into, right next to you is a site that needs to be cleaned, right? That site needs to be cleaned first. And then if they're going to remove the foundation, which is what they're saying they're going to do, then they're going to dig 6 inches of soil away from that, or 12 inches of soil, depending on what the marker is. And that's got to be removed first, because all that dirt and soot and everything is going to come right back into your already cleaned, smoke damaged house, right? So they have to figure the order of that out. They're doing it by zones. And I can see the organization coming together, but I can also see the big disconnect with, our current administration and our, federal administration. And it concerns me that, we need to put our big boy, pants on and just kind of all get along so that we can have some federal help, some federal aid. That's the big issue.
Realistically, do you think it's going to be before you can move back into your house?
Well, depending on what you're willing to put up with, I suppose I could move back in there tomorrow and wear a mask and clean my water, and people will be doing that. I've seen people doing it. But I think it's going to be 90 days before EPA is completely out of there. And then you could move in technically because you're not in an area that has chemicals. And then it's about, living next to the cleaning of the lots themselves, which is, they're starting right away. Smaller streets that have organized groups on the streets. I had a big meeting on one of our streets that there's only 15 homeowners, and we're starting now. They were in there yesterday, already starting to move things out. Power's been restored to the 3 houses that are standing. So I could see that street being in construction in 90 days. If the building department, if Karen Bass's office and Tracy Parks, who's one of the councilwomen, and maybe a larger construction group, not Smirnoff or what's his name, Steve Soboroff, not guys like that, but actually a real big construction company. If they could get together, I think that they could do cleanup in 90 days. I think they just need to get more organized. They need to do things that they can afford to do, because the city doesn't have money. And I think we should talk about that. Why don't we have any money for this, right? We don't have any money for this. But things that Karen Bass's office could do that don't cost money is move the building department into the Palisades and let people pay for permits, create jobs and create work. And that's not going to cost the city money. That's going to make money for the city, and that's going to mobilize people. That's a great thing that Bass's office should be doing. Another thing they could do is they could allow larger construction companies to privately contract instead of small construction companies, so that things would move faster. These are things that they could be doing that they're not doing. They should issue all permits that are 10 years old immediately without any red tape. That's something they could be doing. They could hire independent retired building and safety inspectors and geologists to work with people to help them get their planning permits and start their digging. There's so many things that they could do that don't cost a lot of money that actually will bring revenue into the city. This is what they should be doing. Instead, they are having, judges in Sacramento say that they don't want to turn the water on and have voter ID because they think that's wrong. And so therefore Donald Trump will just have to leave his $1.2 billion sitting on his desk. I mean, come on. And $1.2 billion isn't going to solve the problem. It's a $5 billion problem. It's at a minimum to clean it up. Just do the math on the structures.
When you talk to your neighbors, when you talk to people in your community whose homes did not make it, what are most of them doing in terms of lodging? Are they just like buying new homes, renting new homes, going to Airbnb, staying with relatives? What are they doing?
So in the Palisades, it's obviously, completely different answer than I would say than Altadena. The people that have resources or have second homes, like one of my clients that I've worked with for years is, living in a home that they own in the Alphabet Streets that burned while they're building their home in the Riviera that is in construction but didn't burn, so not livable. So they have 2 homes, 3 homes. Most people that I've spoken with are adamant about rebuilding. I think this kind of narrative that people aren't going to rebuild is really incorrect. I haven't talked to a single person yet that isn't going to rebuild. And I have talked to hundreds of neighbors. Everybody is about rebuilding. Nobody is just, these people are not potted plants. They're going to build their houses back. There's lots of great lodging locally. We are staying, for example, at a little hotel on Ocean Avenue called, the name of it, the Georgian. And we have a suite, and it's not that expensive. I mean, it's expensive, but it's within the margin of what your insurance would consider housing, the average housing in the area. Most hotels have given discounted rates, for example, for anybody that's been in the fire. Now, how long that's going to last is another subject, but there's plenty of that. They're also going to allow ADUs on the property, and they are restoring power. So if you clear your lot and put an ADU on it, you could have technically be on the lot until your property is rebuilt. So that's good news for us.
Do you have private insurance, or do you have the FAIR plan?
So I have multiple properties, so I have different insurances. I have a couple of private policies, and I have one California FAIR plan.
And how have the insurance companies been at making you whole?
Well, so everyone is slightly different, but I would say that my out of four, I would say that my average has been I'm about say 75 to 80% satisfied that they are doing the best that they can do. I do believe that it's incredibly overwhelming. I also think that it's, insurance covers all sorts of houses. And I think it's a little bit mind-boggling for some of these insurance adjusters and the cleaning companies that come and check the air and all that to really understand the gravity of the size and the value of the homes that they are looking at. In other words, like they're wanting to do like attic check, and the house is a $25 million house. Like attic check, okay, you're going to pull the insulation out. Like the movie theater has to be redone, or the drapery or the furniture. I mean, the losses are like just in contents alone are $3 and $4 million. So it's just, no one has really enough insurance anymore because the Palisades has been, I'm a perfect example of that. I used to have Chubb and like Lloyd's of London and State Farm. Like, I had really good policies in the Palisades for multiple years on end. And about 2 years ago, insurance companies got very skittish. And my guess is, the obvious signs that there was no brush clearance and we were having multiple fires. So they pulled out. And we were forced as homeowners, especially anyone with loans. I'm a developer and a homeowner, so therefore I have loans, and loans require that you have insurance, and they have very specific requirements. And insurance cannot be stacked, although they have let us do that. This requires you to have really, you just got insurance companies that really are asking for minimal coverage. And I could honestly say there are a couple of my homes that had they burned down, there would not have been even half the coverage that was needed. It's just shame.
Are you worried that after this you're going to end up on the FAIR plan for all of them?
Wow, that's a brilliant question, John. Well, first of all, California FAIR plan won't be able to sustain this. There's just not enough money. So I don't know what that's going to look like federally. Are they going to, I think they'll probably do what's kind of been talked about, which is a levy to all insurance companies. So everybody will sort of get like a kind of a supplemental bill. No, I think what we need is new leadership, and we need a better commissioner, an insurance commissioner that really understands what's happening in California. And we need promises and commitments from our government to, create brush clearance and to make a safer environment for the residents and to have water and to fund the fire department. There's a way to have insurance, but you have to manage your resources, and we're not doing that. So we can argue that California FAIR plan is going to be for all. That doesn't help you. Who cares? It's like free ham at the synagogue. We need to clean our trees. We need to clean our forests. We need to have water. We need to fund the fire department. We need to allow people to be able to, have their own suppression systems and their own fire, fire department teams, because if they don't do that, and you rely on local resources and the local resources are completely depleted, you lose your house. So in California FAIR plan will be broke, and it will just repeat itself. We have to stop it now. this was a big wake-up call. The fact that only 24 people, I think it's 24, I hope it's not more than that because then I would be misspeaking, and God rest every single soul. But, that's an incredibly low number given the amount of damage. And we should be so thanks be to God for that. And we should really pay attention to that and get on board to get this place cleaned up.
Elaine
this could happen in Beverly
Culotti,
Hills.
building strategist, developer, 31-year resident of Pacific Palisades. All of your houses survived the fire. What did you do after you found out that your home survived? You go out and buy a lottery ticket saying there's something going on that I'm doing right, that God is smiling on me?
Oh my gosh, John, no. I made a commitment to help every single person that I could possibly help with my skill set. That's my job for the next 2 years, is to use my voice and extend my skill set and help people make better decisions in terms of building and getting the right people in there. And foregoing the politics of it. We have to be realistic. We have to say the truth and stop, saying, oh, it's okay, it's going to be better. It's not. This is the rubber hit the road. The buck stops here. It stops with Gavin Newsom. It stops with Mayor Bass. They need to completely unplug and pivot and come up with a better plan. I heard he wasted $100 million on Rise LA. Why don't they take that money and go clean up the streets? And what about this? I'm sure, you've had someone on about the ULA tax. Have you had anybody on about the ULA tax?
No, we haven't.
Well, listen, slowly but surely, we have lost our real estate business in Los Angeles County. And this is not a small thing, because real estate in Los Angeles County is California's New York Stock Exchange. It is where our business is. We trade on an average of between $20 and $30 billion a year annually in real estate in LA County. If you think about all of that money just trickling down to 10% of it or 20% of it, because they saw fit to tax or levy developers, hospital owners, apartment builders, mansions, everybody, to provide money for housing homeless people without thinking about what it would do to the real estate market. That's what they did. And they torpedoed the real estate market.
All right.
And it's an illegal levy. And they torpedoed the market. And so there's no money because no one's trading. If they got rid of if Gavin Newsom got behind a podium and got rid of ULA, what they call mansion tax, tomorrow morning, it would open up the floodgates of trading real estate again, which would allow people to find housing, which would allow people to move real estate, which would put an influx of billions and billions of dollars into the real estate market, which would help in this crisis.
Well, good luck getting him to do that. What they do is they do everything they can to make housing more expensive in California and insurance more expensive in California. And then they blame the high cost of living, or they blame the homeless crisis on the high cost of living, which they created. I got to run. I'm late for a break. Elaine, thank you so much for stopping by, and I'm so happy that your property survived.
Nice to talk to you. Bye. Bye, and bye to all your viewers. Bye.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or hit that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts, like yesterday's show where we listened to Rick Caruso do his best impression of Shang Tao.
Absolutely.
And coming up later on this week, Randy, you and I are going to Santa Ana.
We are going to be in Santa Ana this Friday. Kensley, Johnny, and I broadcast live from noon to 3, Friday the 7th at Rove, Santa Ana. And Johnny, who's joining us there?
We're going to be joined in studio, and by in studio, I mean in Santa Ana, by Barbara Stone, Todd Spitzer, the district attorney of Orange County, and Ken Kachigian. All of them will be with us in attendance.
Rove Santa Ana is a full-service EV charging station with 40 ultra-fast EV charges, a 24/7 lounge with restrooms and free Wi-Fi, a convenience store, Recharge by Gelson's. We're going to have free samples from vendors and barbecuing going on. Come hungry as we broadcast live. Rove and Recharge by Gelson's are located at 1008 East 17th Street in Santa Ana, off the 5 at the corner of East 17th and Lincoln. We'll see you live Friday the 7th.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
790 KABC welcomes the Outlaw Music Festival with Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, Billy Strings, and more at the Hollywood Bowl on May 16th. Tickets are on sale tomorrow. No, they're on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
Let's go to Richard in Santa Monica. Richard, hello.
How you doing, John? Great show. Your previous caller says, I guess she says there's no money, but the insurance companies already paid off to most of these. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I'm a contractor. I mentioned they don't even mention the money. Of course, they lost a lot of property interior, but as far as building a structure, they're well endowed. Okay, I think the insurance company. I hate to even mention it was 45 years ago. Where that was MGM Fire. You know, Trump was a client, so I hope he send us some love here and get these houses rebuilt, because the ramifications, even using storage at the beach and stuff, there's only things to streamline this production here, because it's not political. Let's not get political, because this is something that's people's lives. I've been a victim sometimes, and you look at the faces, is really not about the money. So I think that the neighborhood and the way I looked at it today is just like, okay, Gleason, how did Gleason burn down? This kind of stuff is you got to get the memories back here some kind of way, or because people want to keep their houses. It is a good area. And one other thing I wanted to mention is with the Coastal Commission, that side that's almost $1 billion worth of construction there. And, as far as doing it, that's got to be done by a large company just to get the foundation. And it affects the ocean. And we got to get that done as quick as possible, because I looked at that. It was like in the 18th century where the ocean looked beautiful. I thought I was Balboa. I said, hey, because it's like, don't build here. But, we had houses there. So it's a road. And let's get this done as quick as possible. Great show, John.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. 800-222-5222 if you want to weigh in, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
John writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, Karen Bass is so inept. After listening to your 1 o'clock guest, it just becomes more obvious. We need someone in charge that knows what the hell they're doing.
Well, we had that opportunity, and instead of choosing someone who knows what they're doing, we chose Karen Bass.
Absolutely.
Well, we know that the courts have been, let's just say, welcoming to the homeless, not just here in California, but nationwide. Part of the reason that there was such a hesitancy to bust up the homeless encampments was that local government was essentially afraid that the courts would crack down on them. They've also been cracking down on the ability of police officers to interact with mentally ill, homeless people on the streets. And one sheriff here in the state of California is pushing back on one particular court.
In Sacramento County, Sheriff Jim Cooper has announced that his deputies will no longer be going out on any 911 calls related to a mental health crisis. They're going to make the firefighters or the mental health workers do it, because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that police officers do not get qualified immunity if they respond to something that's not a crime and end up shooting somebody, whether they try to stab you or not.
So now the firefighters and the social workers have to figure it out.
For more on what's going on in Sacramento County, here is CBS Sacramento.
Now to a story you saw first here on CBS 13. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Office pulling back on its response to certain mental health calls, the result of a federal court ruling. We told you last week about concerns from firefighters and mental health advocates, and tonight the Sheriff's Office and the sheriff himself is responding.
A reporter covering Sacramento County, Madison Keevy, is getting answers on what's next and how other counties will tackle the issue.
So thanks to the Ninth Circuit Court, now firefighters have to respond to these calls defenseless with no backup.
I don't blame the cops. If something goes haywire and they could end up bankrupting you and putting you in prison for the rest of your life, I wouldn't want to deal with this issue either.
For far too long, when someone calls us, it's not a crime. Why have we been doing this all along?
That question.
Well, because it could very well turn into a crime.
Yeah. When you're dealing with someone who's on drugs or not in their right mind, guess what? Their judgment isn't the best.
Do we need a little refresher with what happened to the ambassadors up in San Francisco, former Mayor London Breed?
People have been stabbed in Urban Alchemy. They've been shot. They've been attacked. And they still show up every single day as an alternative to policing for this community.
I wonder why she lost.
Hard to tell.
That question answered by a new Sacramento County Sheriff's policy. They won't respond to non-criminal mental health calls anymore.
Being mentally ill is not a crime.
So you can't call the police if you think someone's about to lose it and get all crazy until they've already stabbed somebody.
Well, you can call the police. They just won't show up.
Being mentally ill is not a crime, but yet we're being here, being forced to be there and be that person. And I'm at the point, as sheriff elected, enough's enough.
The policy change that's already in effect is in response to a Ninth Circuit Court ruling that removed qualified immunity where no crime is being committed. That leaves officers at risk of potential lawsuits.
So somebody calls 911, the police show up, somebody is going completely insane and starts lashing out. Maybe they're armed, maybe they're not, but they didn't already commit a crime. If that incident leads to a police-involved shooting, now that police officer who got called to the scene, they can be personally sued.
What's interesting is that Jim Cooper, the sheriff up there, used to be a member of the California State Assembly as a Democrat and would typically vote with the Democrats on all of these hot-button issues. But now that he's out of the legislature and he's a sheriff, now he sounds like Mark Levin.
And officers can be held personally liable. Personally liable. The fire department can't. Mental health professionals can't.
We've spoken to Sacramento Metro.
So do you call the cops after the mental health professional gets stabbed?
Yeah, I think what you do is you just wait until there's a crime that's been committed, and then you bring the cops in to clean up the mess.
We've spoken to Sacramento.
And, we love to say the term mental health crisis. Do you know how many mental health crises are people zonked out on meth?
Seems to be quite common.
Is it the chicken or the egg? Were you crazy or did the meth make you crazy?
We've spoken to Sacramento Metro Fire, and they say that this new policy puts all firefighters in the county at risk. So my question to you is, what were those conversations like with them?
What do they expect us to do? I'll be honest, there's no crime. We're not the bodyguards for everybody. If there's no crime being committed, why is law enforcement there?
Call us after they turn violent.
If you're going to hold them accountable and you are going to potentially go after them civilly and criminally, if it hits the fan, I understand their concerns.
What is your response?
We have a great relationship with law enforcement. This isn't an us versus them thing. This is a bad court decision that was brought down with unintended consequences.
Right after Sheriff Jim Cooper spoke to media.
Is there ever a time where the Ninth Circuit gets it right?
No, they're like the OJ jury of courts.
Right after Sheriff Jim Cooper spoke to media, we went back to Sac Metro Fire, echoing what they told us first last week. They need backup on these types of calls.
But at the end of the day, if our company officers are not comfortable going in on an incident because there's a potential for somebody to get hurt or killed, we're not going to be able to make entry, and that's going to hurt the community.
So the firefighters aren't going to show up either?
No, let's just send the social workers.
The court's decision impacts law enforcement across the state. And just like in Sacramento, it's up to the departments to make changes or not. Has your department decided how you're going to handle this moving forward?
We have, and it's going to be fluid. and we're going to address it as it comes.
In San Joaquin County, the sheriff's office will still respond to non-criminal mental health calls.
Sacramento's response to this is one way of doing it, and I'm sure other agencies will probably go that direction too, and we may eventually also. But right now, we're just trying to do it on a case-by-case basis.
You're not
until they get sued.
I have friends in law enforcement, and they tell me, outside of domestic violence cases, what they hate showing up to more than anything are these mental health calls, because you're dealing with someone, particularly if they're homeless, they're not in their right mind, they haven't bathed in a long time, you put them in the back of your car, they destroy the car, they go to the bathroom in the back of your car, they stink up the car, they will not stop screaming, they will not stop talking, and you have to be around this person for a certain period of time. Because they're not following any of your instructions, it gets physical. You have to restrain them. And every time you're involved in a physical altercation, there's always the risk that someone's going to get hurt. So you have a lot of liability every time you respond to one of these calls. In a weird sort of way, this court is probably doing them a favor if they just stop responding to these calls. The problem is, if they don't respond to the calls, then that person that's having a mental health breakdown at the Ralph's supermarket is just going to be able to destroy the supermarket. That's the world we live in. We have one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.